Frances isn't immature. She's just out of sync. Out of sync with timelines, expectations, and a version of adulthood that she's not ready or willing to perform. Frances Ha isn't about failing to grow up. It's about the grief of growing up slowly. About disorientation that comes when friendships change, dreams fade, and life moves forward without a clear path. Frances isn't lost. She's just somewhere in between. And for a lot of us, that's exactly where we have been too. In the opening scene, Frances is dancing at a small, somewhat amateur performance. She's good, but not great. It's the perfect image of someone who's close but still far from what she hopes to become. The frustration and doubt she feels in that moment perfectly mirror the struggle of emerging adulthood. She's good enough, but not yet the person that she wants to be. Frances is 27 years old, artistic, single, and drifting. But what she's really experiencing is something that psychologists now call emerging adulthood, a developmental phase between adolescence and full independence, marked by instability, self-exploration, and uncertainty. She doesn't lack ambition, she lacks structure. And in a world that rewards linear paths, Frances's non-linearity feels like a failure. Her identity, rooted in her creative dream and her closest friendship, begin to slip. And as those things change, so does her sense of self. This is a classic symptom of identity diffusion, where a person hasn't yet committed to a stable sense of self or future direction. She is not lazy, she is just in limbo. The pivotal scene in Frances Ha, when she's living with Sophie and feeling lost, highlights her internal conflict. She moves from apartment to apartment, bouncing between friends, and tries to make sense of her creative life. The lack of stability is something many of us face in our 20s, particularly when societal expectations about career paths and relationships don't align with our own journeys. Frances' grief is not only of losing a friendship, it's of losing herself along with that. Frances's relationship with Sophie is deep, familiar, and at times codependent. They finish each other's thoughts, share beds, share jokes, share life. And then Sophie grows up, moves on, and Frances doesn't. This isn't just the loss of a friend, it's a rupture of Frances' identity, a mirror removed. Psychologists call this a relational rupture, the breakdown of a central emotional bond that leaves a person fragmented or disoriented. Sophie wasn't just her best friend, she was her anchor. But here's the twist. Frances isn't just grieving Sophie, she's grieving the version of herself that existed with Sophie, the one who believed they would grow side by side forever in sync. And when that dream ends, Frances has to start becoming someone else. The turning point is when Sophie announces that she's moving in with her boyfriend. Frances feels utterly blindsided and is left to process the loss of the version of herself that existed alongside her friend. It's a heartbreaking moment that shows the depth of Frances's codependence on Sophie, as well as the overwhelming grief of change that we have all experienced in one way or another. Frances is a dancer, but not quite. She's good, but not good enough. She's close, but always short of being seen. This near-miss identity is what psychology sometimes links to imposter syndrome and creative narcissism, where your entire sense of self is wrapped up in a dream you can't quite actualize. Frances doesn't just want to dance, she wants to be seen as exceptional, and when that doesn't happen, her whole sense of self collapses. There's also a deeper layer. Frances swings between impulsivity, emotional idealism, and relational intensity. Some psychologists might loosely relate these traits to emotional dysregulation that is often seen in borderline personality disorder. However, this is not a diagnosis, it's just a lens, a way to see the situation through a more clinical perspective. High highs, crashing lows. Frances is not unstable, she's just emotionally raw. Frances's dance company offers her a supporting role rather than lead, and this marks a significant blow to her self-esteem. She lashes out, goes on an impulsive trip to Paris, and acts in self-destructive ways. This reflects her emotional dysregulation, where rejection leads to extreme reactions driven by her deep desire to be seen as exceptional and her emotional instability in the face of failure. Frances Ha is a reminder that we need to redefine our growth without killing our inner child. Here's where the film starts to shift. Frances doesn't land her dream job, she doesn't marry the love of her life, she doesn't have a breakthrough, but what she does do is adjust. She finds smaller joys, learns to live alone, moves from fantasy to flexibility. And in psychology, that's a key sign of emerging emotional maturity, when someone stops resisting change and starts adapting to it without losing themselves. Frances doesn't kill her inner child, she just becomes her inner adult too. Her ending is hopeful, not because she finally makes it, but because she learns to make peace with the reality of life. The final scene, where Frances is in a New York apartment alone, shows her coming to terms with where she is in life. She accepts her imperfections, embraces her career as a teacher, and finds peace within herself. This is a beautiful moment of emotional maturity, where she realizes she doesn't need to be perfect or achieve every dream to find fulfillment. Frances Ha is about the heartbreak of not arriving, of watching people pass you by, of being in the middle of becoming someone but not knowing who yet. It's about the quiet grief that comes with friendship loss, identity confusion, and dreams that don't unfold in time. But it's also about the softness of trying, the courage of adjusting, and the quiet power that comes with becoming your own anchor. It's a reminder that some adults don't have it all figured out, and that adulthood is not a gateway to having all the answers, and that there is beauty in still searching and ultimately finding peace with whatever you find. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!